Hello, and welcome to one of my C++ tutorials. I'm going to introduce you into arrays and data structures. But before I do, please remember to click the like on the video, subscribe to my channel, and share it far and wide, especially if you'd like to see more videos like these. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you into data structures. Then I'm going to show you how to do arrays in C++. So, a data structure, it's a collection of data items that will be stored in memory. So, a number of operations are provided by the software to manipulate that particular data structure. And there's loads of different data structures available to programmers. If you're watching this and you're doing GCSE computer science, you'll likely only need to know records and arrays, even at AS level. So lists, records, and arrays, they would be the only ones you would need to know at GCSE and at AS level. If you're watching this and you're doing A2, you would also need to understand stacks, queues, binary trees, linked lists, hash tables, as well as arrays, records, and lists. So arrays go from one dimension to three-dimensional arrays. Okay? So data structures, they fall into categories. So you've got your static and your dynamic. So in a static data structure, the size of the data structure is set at the beginning of the program and you cannot change it. And that's inefficient because what that means is you have to know how large a data structure needs to be in advance. The static data structures, however, they're easy to program and you know how much space it's going to take up. Whereas with dynamic data structures, you don't have a limited size and you can expand or shrink that limited size as you need it. And they tend to be more complex to implement. So it's also very common for more complex data structures to be made of simpler data structures. So it's normal practice to implement binary trees using a linked list or create a stack using an array. So we have to remember, however, that data structures can be implemented in a number of different ways. So the idea behind a data structure, or an abstract data type, is the important aspect to learn. So we have to learn how the data structure is implemented, is made up to the person coding that implementation. And there's many ways of implementing the same data structure. But the one we're going to be focusing on in this video is an array. So imagine an array as something like this. A variable would be like one house. An array will be like two or more houses in one basically array. So when we want to store lots of information of the same type, the array is used to do just that. So let's say we want to analyze annual rainfall over 9 decades, so 90 years, 90. You could have a traditional solution where there's 90 lines. Or you could just have float rainfall and just have square brackets 90 in one line. So you can see the solution from the array is far more efficient than doing 90 lines of float rainfall through each year and exhausting. Arrays are good when it comes to accessing and storing. So if we want to use an array to access, we can do rainfall 1 is 0.0, rainfall 2 is 0.0, going up to 90. Or, rather than do 90 lines, we can do a for loop in, guess what? 5. Because you would need the float rainfall being to 90. Then you're going to have 4. So you're going to have a for loop as normal for loop, so int I equals 0, I is less than 90, and I equals I plus plus. You can have plus 1, but I prefer the I plus plus. Then you're going to have rainfall, I is equal to 0.0, so that's going to loop until it gets all the way to 90. Okay? And arrays are good for calculating. So rather than have rainfall 1 plus rainfall 2 all the way down to 90, and then divide by 90, sounds tiring, doesn't it? We can have this. Int average equals 0, sum equals 0. So you can have 4i int 0, I is less than 90, and plus plus I, so we're incrementing the I. So you can have sum equals sum plus rainfall, and we're going to have I in there is going to increment it. And we're going to have average equals sum divided by 90. That's much easier to do and much more readable there. So the arrays are useful if we want to store lots of information of the same data type, whether it be an int, a float, a string. And arrays, they require, obviously, as you can see, much less typing than when declaring them, initializing them, and accessing or calculating with them. So arrays are data storage for multiple values. Storage location of each item is an element. So each element within the array is referenced by an integer index value. So let's say we've got all of the elements. They have to be at the same data type. So you can have a set of grades, which are individual characters. So EC, AC, D, B, B, A, G, F. So they're all characters. We can have a list of names, which is a string. So we've got Peter, Lois, Meg, Chris, Stewie. Yes, all Family Guy names, I know. Wasn't a bit. Only watch Family Guy from time to time, but it's supposed to be really funny. So, but my point is, names, they're all strings. That's the point I'm getting at. So let's have a look at an example of this array, and let's see this array in action. So this is one of the programs we can do. So we've got a const int, so we set the const year to 12. So we set the constant to 12, and then we set the variable int sum equals 0, pay equals 1000. So we have monthly pay, and we're going to put year to it because there's 12 months in a year. So we've got 4i is 0, I is less than year, and I equals I plus 1. This is incrementing every month. So we're going to do I equals pay, monthly I equals pay, then pay is pay plus 10. So it's incremented by 10. And then we're going to output basically the monthly pay. And then we're going to add all of this together. So if we were to run it, which will take its time, and it's outputted the sum. So 1000 plus 10. So 1000 plus 1010. 1010 plus 1000, and so on. So you're going to get 12,660 as your final sum. Okay? So that is how we work through this example. Let's have a look at some arrays tasks, because you can see there's quite a lot of arrays tasks to go through. So I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through a few and then do another video where we're actually implementing more tasks. So this first task is in 2 parts. So I'd recommend you can do it in the same replit, or you can do each of these in a separate replit. I would recommend keeping it in the same replit for this scenario, just so you can see how to do arrays in a string and an integer. So we need to see all the numbers are displayed in the following array. So let's grab this code. So we're going to need a for loop for this one. So we know if I was to press run, my array is 0, so it's only going to output the first number, which is 21. However, I can change it to 1, run it, and it's going to output the second number in the array. Okay, so that's what it does there. But we need a for loop to output the whole array. So we're going to do for int I is 0, I is less than 9, I'm going to have I plus plus. And we have squiggly brackets as normal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see out. I'm going to have my array I. Then we're going to run the code and we're going to try this out and see if it works. And yes, that works. But the problem is they're all stuck together. So what we can do is extend the C out to have and put double quotation marks to separate the numbers. So let's have a look and see. So you can see in the previous one, the numbers were jumbled together. But because we made that little edit in the code, the numbers are separated out. So that is part A. That's part A of this task. And that works. Okay, now we're going to do a string this time. So we need to see all the cars in this following array. But there's a problem. We will now need an include string. So if we were to run this, put the cars, it's just going to output the Volvo because 0 is Volvo, 1 is BMW, 2 is Ford, 3 is Mazda. Okay, so hence we got the Volvo printed out there when it shouldn't be. So what we're going to do, I can put the 1 in there, but it's going to output BMW. It's going to be the same as what we did before. So what we need to do is a for loop like before, and I'm going to do int, so for int, and I'm going to call that d equals 0. And then while d is less than 4, I'm going to do d plus plus. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do C out. I'm going to do cars, square brackets, D. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another part of the C out, do the double quotes, and there we go. But what I'm going to do to make sure they are separated, I'm going to do a C out and I'm going to do \n, just to separate the two outputs. So if I was to click run, so we've got the numbers outputted, and now we've got all 4 of the cars outputted in the array. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is task 1 done. So that's done, dusted. Now for task 2. So in task 2, we need to copy the whole code, and then we're going to make some edits to it once we've written this down. So I'm going to take you through it bit by bit. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to park this over here, and I'm going to park this there, so you can see what I am doing as I'm doing it. So it'll be handy to keep the string. In this case, we won't need the include string. So we need a constant int, and we're going to call that number of employees, and that's going to equal to 6. Then we're going to have int hours num employees. So that's what we need there. So this program is going to ask for the number of hours worked by 6 employees. It's going to store the values in an array and display the values. So the first thing we need to do is get the hours worked by each employee. So we need for count of employees, so it's equals 0. Count of employees. What I should have done there was an int. So that's what I should have done there, is an int. Count employees is num employees. and then count of employees plus plus. So that's what I should have done. So num employees. Right, what I should have done is I put a hyphen rather than this. So you can see, if I just put the wrong thing, like a minus, I should have done shift minus to get this character. And because I didn't get the right character, that's why it didn't have num employees. Otherwise, I would have been able to just type in. So now we're going to have cout, enter the hours worked by employee. So I want, in brackets, count of employees plus 1. And I'm going to do that. And there we go. And then I'm going to cin hours count of employees. And that's that for loop done. So now we want to cout escape character, so we want the list of hours worked. So we can almost take this, copy this and paste this for loop. And then what we're going to do, we've got count of employees, let's count of employees, less than that, and then count of employees. So now we want employee, count of employees plus 1, and we want to say worked. And then we're going to cout here hours count of employees, and then we're just going to have hours. So I'm going to run the project, and that should work as it should. So by employee 1, he's worked for 20 hours. This one's worked for 40, this one's worked for 12, this one's worked for 14, this one's worked for 30, 35. So list of hours worked. One worked for 20 hours, so it's outputting how many hours they have worked, which is all we need in this case. That's all we need in this case. What we could have done was this. \n, it'll just look better. So I'm going to input the same numbers. So I'm going to do 20, 40, 12, 14, 30, 35. And you can see the second output looks much better than the first one where it's all piled together. Okay? So that is that task done. That's that part of task 2, shall we say. Let's have a look at the next bits. So now we need to add code to the program that ensures that during the number of hours worked by each employee is greater or equal to 0 hours. So that's the next bit we need to do. So let's have a look at the type of code we would need. So in this case, where we've got cin, so where we've got cin hours employees, you could just shove a while loop in there. So let's have a try. Goes all the way down there. So I'm going to enter 0 I have to enter a valid number of hours now. Let's do -1. I go and enter number of valid, so 1. Let's say I want to do 0. Still got to do it. And there we go. So it's making me enter while the number is less than or equal to 0. So we can tick that bit off. We can tick that bit off there. Now we need to add the code that displays the average hours worked by the employee of the company. So how are we going to do this one? So we're going to need to go down here. After that, so we got number of employees. So we're going to int I is I number of employees, I plus plus. We're doing the sum plus hours, and that's how we average, so sum based on the number of employees, based on that constant. And that's given us the, and then we see out the average. And then the final bit is to add the code that determines and then displays the maximum and minimum of hours worked by the employee. So we got the for loop, number of employees, I plus plus, hours is less than min, so we got the min being the hours, and that's the least hours. Other one is working out the most. So let's delete all of this, and let's run the code again. So I'm going to enter 20, 40, 12, 13, 30, 35. So average is 25, the minimum is 12, and the maximum should actually be 40, not 20. Because employee 2 actually worked for 40 hours and not 20. Okay, but this is the basic idea on how the code should work. So when there's a little problem, that is where we would need to make a slight change there. But we got 25 and we got the 12 exactly right. It's just the maximum that we need now. So we could change that to that. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to run this. And there we go. So what I should have done is I should have switched out from greater than to less than, because I did greater than and outputted 20 when it should have outputted 40 being the maximum. So in this one, it's actually the less than, not the greater than. And that is the first two tasks. That's the first two tasks and the introduction to arrays finished. I will do another video going through more arrays tasks, but this is just like a gentle introduction into it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please remember to click that like button, subscribe to my channel, and spread this video far and wide, and I look forward to making the next video for you very soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.